Hey y'all, it's the Ebonee Gamer, and I decided I was gonna go ahead and go through with that podcast, and I've decided to call it the Ebonee Podcast. It's so original, I already know. Like everybody wants that name, I already know. I'm way ahead of the game with that. But I don't know if you watched like the last Bloodborne video that I did, but I mentioned that I'd be doing a podcast in that video, or I was thinking about doing one. I just wasn't 100 at the time, but I was holding off on it because I wasn't really seeing any topics that resonated with me, that I felt like I could really contribute to. But now, I actually did find one. I found one that I think is pretty important, and it's something that's I could almost be beating the bones of the carcass of the dead horse on this topic. I could, but I've never really openly said my 2 cents on this, so I don't care. I have an opinion. If you haven't guessed by the title, today's topic is sexualization of women in video games. And if you're listening to this on SoundCloud, because I will be uploading this on SoundCloud as I will with all the podcasts in the future. If you're listening to this on there, I am putting this on YouTube. And I'm mentioning that because there's some things I'm going to be showing later in this podcast that I have to do this in video form as well. There's some images on screen that are going to go with some points I'm going to highlight later. But let's just get right into it. I don't really see the need to beat around the bush. Whenever you hear this topic, and it's a big one, it prevails us as women in video games. We can't have one decent female character without it being like something's wrong with her. And then the most notable thing is, oh, she's too sexualized, she's being objectified, And the arguments usually, this is bad because it dehumanizes women, it objectifies them, it misrepresents them. Or I should be saying us, because I'm a woman. If you didn't know, I am a black woman. But I'm gonna tell you, I think those things are bullshit. I do. I have several issues with these stances and arguments, and personally to me, it seems like the critics that talk about these things for the better of women just seem to be trying to fight tooth and nail to do nothing but reduce them down to their body size or body type or the way that they're dressed, and I don't see how that's helpful to women. I don't see how they don't see the irony of committing such a sexist act while claiming to be calling out sexism or to be against sexism, but whatever. And then when like it's left up to us as gamers who grew up with these ladies or who enjoy these characters to defend them, and then we're the ones called sexist, and it's like, hold on now, because last time I checked, we're not the ones that coin terms like fighting fuck toy and Mrs. Male or Miss Male or whatever to demean female characters, now are we? I'm pretty sure that wasn't us. But let's get into some of these stances today. The dehumanization argument, I'm really not for that, because it sounds very like, it sounds like it's pandering to that very closed-minded, overly conservative crowd, which I don't really have a problem with if you apply it to yourself, but they usually don't do that. And their argument usually for like people who are pro-sex, especially women, in fields of like sex work, like cam girls, porn stars, strippers, that type of thing, sugar babies. Did I already mention sugar babies? I don't know. But their argument usually is, you're dehumanizing yourself, But if that's something she's chosen to do, how is she dehumanizing herself, Is sex inhuman? Is it something that Is it something that we're not supposed to be doing? How does it deprive us of humanity? I don't understand. A woman, and with female video game characters, it really confuses me, because a woman who can hold her own in a fight, has her own agency, her own goals, her own desires, what have you, and is a 3D well-written character, shouldn't be dehumanized just because she isn't afraid to own her, her own sexual freedom, and she's comfortable in her skin. What about that is dehumanizing? I don't understand. It sounds an awful lot like the misogynistic idea that women who enjoy sex or are sexually liberated, or maybe, you know, that they just dress a certain way, that they don't respect themselves as women, as humans, or anything. But like how do you know that? How do you know that she doesn't respect herself? You know, how do you know that and in this case, talking about fictional characters, how do you know the devs didn't respect her when they were writing her? How do you know players don't respect her, especially when we're constantly defending them from you, you know? And I feel like the idea matters here, because do you feel like that about women in the real world? That's an issue to me. And I feel like finally on the dehumanization topic, if this idea were allowed to persist, that being sexual somehow dehumanizes you, I feel like that would harm future representation of women in games. I feel like that's the start of making only one acceptable female in video games, the more reserved or conservative female, and I don't think that's right. Now, the objectification argument, like, I swear I haven't heard this word as many times in my life as I have heard it concerning women in video games. It's crazy. And I went to the dictionary. I'm aware of what objectification means, but I wanted to get it as clear as it could be on here. And at first I went to Merriam-Webster. And the definition of objectification, according to Merriam-Webster, is to treat as an object or cause to have objective reality. Okay. How does a woman expressing her sexuality make her an object? And how would that cause her to have an objective reality? If she's choosing to express her sexuality, no matter how she's choosing to do it, be it through how she dresses, her occupation, her demeanor, her clothing, her actions, her just very being, it doesn't matter, fictional or real. And as much as a fictional character can have a choice, wouldn't that go against her having an objective reality? Now, according to Cambridge Dictionary, I don't know if anybody uses Cambridge, because I normally go to Merriam-Webster, but, you know, I saw it up there, so I was like, okay, I'll take it, sounds fancy. Treating people like tools or toys as if they had no feelings, opinions, or rights of their own. Alright, well, to be realistic as possible, a fictional character can't really have those things the way a human being can, because everything they ever do will be chosen for them. Everything they ever believe in will be pre-written. Everything they ever do will be pre-written or decided, the outcome of things that they do. But for the sake of this podcast, for the sake of this discussion, how a person chooses to express themselves sexually, real or fake, shouldn't automatically mean they're like an object or a toy, because this leaves very little room for anything other than conservatism when concerning their own sexuality. A well-rounded character, what we generally consider well-rounded characters anyways, would have their own feelings, opinions, and rights of their own. That's what would make them, again, a well-rounded character, an independent character. But that doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't seem to matter when these people are critiquing it. They don't ever take those things into account because they can't get past how they look in order to get to the personality, you know? And that's an issue. Now, 3, the misrepresentation of women. And this argument, this is the easiest one. This can be argued away simply like this. All women are not a collective consciousness slinking through the earth. We're not a hive mind. What the next chick eats will not make me shit. The next chick isn't the same as the next one, so female representation should showcase that. It shouldn't be showing us all the same, because I'd like to see the country where every woman is the exact same, because I can speak from my American reality, and that's not the case here. I feel pretty confident saying it's not that way for the world, and there are plenty of women in reality who are comfortable with their own sexuality, and this has been evidenced by things like modern things like slut walks, people who champion sex workers' rights, memes like "be a slut, do whatever you want." It's very obvious that, you know, that I won't say it's like we're having a second sexual revolution, but it's very obvious people are kind of tired of the be ashamed of everything type narrative. And this is usually, women are usually at the center of this tone. But but it's unrealistic to see women who be proud of their sexuality, even though you can see that very easily in the real world. If this was the only way women could be represented in games, I could see that, because that's just the opposite side of the problem. All women are not, not necessarily not comfortable in their skin, but all women don't want to show skin. All women don't want to express their sexuality openly, or maybe they don't have a sexuality. That's completely fine. But we have women like that. And even though they get torn down for other reasons, they're not good enough, they still are representation of the other side of women who are the opposite of those things. And I find it funny because the Japanese industry gets a lot of flack over here from like how they portray women and whatnot, but I find their games to be some of the most diverse. Like, I've seen trans characters, I've seen gay characters, of course I've seen straight characters, I've seen plenty of playable female characters, I've seen sexual versus conservative characters, but we're supposed to be so pro-women, so progressive over here. And we don't necessarily have all that. We have plenty of women playable characters, plenty of sexual versus conservative, but there's a lot of places where Japan has kind of pushed the envelope or moved on, because I feel their devs aren't as bound by overblown critics in their ear leading rampages against them, whenever they do something they don't like. And we're supposed to be so progressive and pro-women, but female characters get attacked from no other angle than their appearance, and it's simply attacked for not covering up their necks and their ankles, because necks and ankles are the devil. And personally, I think that this idea I feel this tone is misogynistic in itself, which is, again, ironic, because if you can't respect a female character because of what she's wearing, then it's not the fault of the writers or the devs and other gamers who do respect her. And, it just seems like it should be obvious what the issue there is. Oh, she'd have been a great character, she just would have covered up. She would have been a great character if she just would have kept her legs closed, It's like, what? A while ago, I checked out Jim Sterling's vid on Quiet, but recently, I watched Louis Laveau's criticism of it, Inception, and I disagreed strongly with Jim Sterling when he had put that video out. I just, and like seeing it again, I was paying more attention to what he was saying, and it made me, after a point, it got uncomfortable. And it was weird, and it felt like projection, because he kept mentioning stuff like, oh, it's a wank fest, she's just there for you to have a little wank, or toss off, whatever British slang. I'm sorry, UK, I don't know, I'm American. It got uncomfortable after a while, because it's like, now I haven't played the game myself. I'm a Metal Gear Solid fan, but I didn't get around to playing MGS5. But I did watch a lot of my favorite LPers play all the way through. And a lot of them did interact with Quiet. And it did, I wasn't like, maybe because I'm a heterosexual woman, but I wasn't sitting there thinking, man, I gotta get with that. She is fine as fuck. I need that in my life. Like, and thinking about masturbating. Why did he keep mentioning that? It wasn't funny. Like, it felt like that person that keeps mentioning something or keeps talking about something, and after a while you're like, okay, is that what you're into? Is that what you're doing? Because you keep talking about it, and it's weird, and nobody else was talking about that. And after I found out that he was the one controlling the camera, which Louis Laveau did a good job of highlighting, when he kept complaining about the camera panning over Quiet and trying to make it seem like it's a herbal fucking essence commercial, and he's the one who's panning over her all slow, And then finding out that he had to fulfill the romance angle of the game to even get quiet. And then I think somebody said you have to hold the PDA down or whatever it is and stare at her on the helicopter for a set amount of time. And then she will act like that, but only after the romance phase when she is now Snake's lover. That was so manipulated. I was done at that point. Before I had just disagreed with him, which is why I think it's important that you play these games, because you can catch these people doing these things. But it was crazy. But again, going back to stick to the point of this video, to this podcast, he continuously mentioned wanking off and her being wank material, and essentially implying she was there for sexual thrill. And then he was, towards the end of the video, he mentioned, I really thought she was a badass character. She was cool, whatever. But I just couldn't get past the way she was dressed, essentially. That is such bullshit. If she was such a good character, then it shouldn't have mattered. It should not have mattered what she was wearing. To me, that's like the equivalent of like a woman curing cancer, and then she's trying to tell you what she did, how she came about finding the cure or whatever. But let's say she's wearing a tube top or a halter top. That's the kind of clothes she likes to wear. That's fine. But people I can't take your opinions seriously, woman. What are you wearing? Who are you? I don't care what you just did. I don't want to hear you open your mouth. I cannot respect you because you are wearing, what you're wearing is just, I have much disdain for it. It's silly. And to me, that video was misogynistic. But this is the biggest thing with that video with me, is that if this was any other person, like any other man especially, in any other scenario, this wouldn't even be acceptable. When else is it acceptable for a man to say he can't respect a woman for what she's wearing? It's not. But because he was doing it in the name of SJW nonsense for video games, it's A-okay. And if you can't play video games without being a nasty, greasy fuck sweating Crisco and Cheeto dust cause animated titties, don't take it out on devs and don't take it out on gamers who are more mature than you. That sounds like a personal problem. A personal misogynistic problem that you need to look into. And this is just an off-the-cuff chatter, like, side rant on this video, because I actually was thinking about putting together a more organized video on these types, and not just with his video. There's other people who said things like the more professional video would have like clips, quotes and whatnot that highlight what I'm talking about, because there's a lot of hypocrisy and obvious nonsense, that I feel should be highlighted. But back to my main point here. It isn't right to judge a female character on what she's wearing. It is so hard to get a good female character these days that pleases everybody, because there's always some reason why she's wrong, why she doesn't fit, why she can't fit the bill. And I'll take it back to Metal Gear Solid to keep things organized. Alright, we're gonna play a game today. How do y'all feel about that? Now, I call this game Would It Fly in the Reverse. And what you use this game for is to point out very obvious double standards to people who want to act like double standards don't exist. Of course, now you need to back that up with some proof, but Would It Fly in the Reverse has helped me out so many times over the years, and you don't have to just let it stick to video games. Apply it anywhere and see how that works. Alright, so today's game is going to star Raiden. Old white hair, kind of cute dude from Metal Gear Solid. He was, people weren't really feeling him at first over here, and now he's one of the series favorites. Now, female fans of Kojima and the Metal Gear Solid franchise wrote to Kojima and told him Snake was old. They didn't want to play as him. Now, I'm going to get the quote. I believe that somebody, they did catch the quote for what was said. What the person said in the letter. So we're gonna look at that. Kojima received much fan mail. One letter was from a girl who stated she did not want to play a game with an old man. He took this into consideration, and he and his team designed a character more appealing to women, resulting in Raiden's appearance. Designer Yoji Shinkawa noted that he and the other character designers took a great deal of inspiration for Raiden's appearance from the Bishonen archetype. Because Raiden was a new character, the staff designed him carefully, giving him white hair to symbolize his introduction. Shinkawa further noted that Raiden ended up with an overall feminine appearance. His outfit, the skull suit, was difficult to design until the staff decided on a bone-like concept. Shinkawa really wanted to make Raiden sexually appealing, emphasizing the tightness of his clothing. So we got a couple things popping off here. First of all, let's just get right into the game here. Would it fly in the reverse if Snake had been a female, an older female, and male fans of Kojima and co. wrote in and said, hey, we don't want to play as an old woman. Don't do us like this. We really enjoy your games, but you gotta get her out of here. We don't want to play as an old woman. You don't think hell would have been raised by now about that? Especially if Kojima and co. went through with it? So would it fly in the reverse?
Nope.
Now, here, this is one of the only cases I've ever seen. Not saying it is the only case in existence, but it's the only one that I've seen that actually highlights this gendered gaze nonsense, even though I still think it's nonsense regardless of the gender at hand. But here you have it, being admitted that Raiden was created for the female gaze. And also, if I'm pronouncing it Raiden and it's Raiden or whatever, I can't remember how you pronounce it. I haven't played MGS in a while. So just let me know if I'm getting it wrong. But if I am getting it wrong, my bad. Back to my point. They admitted that he was made to appeal to female fans. His appearance came of demands from female fans or thoughts of female fans. Would that fly in the reverse? Especially, we know it. We actually have our answer to that one, because they love to claim that every female is made for the male gaze. Though we have no proof of that. We have proof Raiden was made for the female gaze. Where's the outcry? But just for the game's sake, we're just gonna act like we don't know the answer. So would it fly in the reverse?
Nope.
Now, before we move on to the next round, they did mention Bishonen, which is apparently an archetype. So let's look into what exactly Bishonen is. Bishonen is a Japanese term literally meaning beautiful youth boy and describes an aesthetic that can be found in disparate areas in East Asia. A young man whose beauty and sexual appeal transcends the boundary of gender or sexual orientation. Now, we see that it's an aesthetic, it's a look, but just who does that look appeal to? Today, Bishonen are very popular among girls and women in Japan. So, at this point, it's just basically been confirmed twice that women were thought in mind. Does that make sense? Women were in mind when designing Raiden's appearance. And let's just highlight one last little thing, how they actively say why Raiden is dressed the way he's dressed in Metal Gear Solid 2. To be sexually appealing. Hey, would it fly in the reverse?
Nope.
Alright, round 2. And guess what? It stars Raiden again. My boy just wants this screen time though. Alright, so guess who was running around Metal Gear Solid 2 butt-ass naked like he was auditioning for a role in Magic Mike? Kinda already gave you the answer with that one. It's Raiden. But hold on, wait a minute now. No clapping, because that is sexual objectification. And we have been taught that that's not... Oh wait, nah, because it's a man. And when a man is rocking the only selection from his natural wardrobe with nothing but his hands to cover his P and his A, is cool. But a woman in a bikini top? In ripped tights? Hell to the fuck no. What were you thinking? Slow down there, Satan. Now, do y'all know if that would fly in the reverse? A woman running around the level, especially when we already have confirmation that she was made to be sexually appealing to the opposite gender. Would it fly in the reverse that she's running around this level covering her front and back with her hands?
Nope.
Alright, round 3 and the last round before we move on to a more important topic, or at least the last topic in this issue. And this is a special round, okay? Now, can somebody tell me why Snake gets to walk around in the same suspender outfit that Quiet has, sans bikini top, that Kaz gets to walk around in a Speedo, and you could hear a church mouse fart on a crumb before you hear them raise hell about it the way they did about Quiet, before you hear them disrespect their characters the way they did Quiet. Now, what makes this round so special is that we already have our answer to would it fly in the reverse, so you get 1 free point. The answer is no. The answer is no if the bashing, the unnecessary bashing of Quiet is anything to go by. And that's going to conclude our game show today, ladies and gents. Thank you for playing. I'm sure the answers were easy as always, unless you have an agenda and you want to blind yourself to the bullshit. Now let's get into something I was touching on previously before we wrap this thing up. Now, what those things above are what I like to call acceptable double standards. Now, I call them that because any other time it's a double standard in any other setting, whether it be legitimate or overblown SJW nonsense, people like to pounce on it with the quickness. And that's not a bad thing, because double standards aren't really a good thing. They aren't. And if there is a legitimate form of a double standard, it needs to get called out and criticized so we can do something about changing it or minimizing it as best we can. Now, one legitimate form of a double standard that's been criticized and as a result minimized over the years is the attitude of sex between men and women. Now, to be fair, there are double standards concerning sex that have to do with men, and I want to talk about that one day because people don't like to talk about it. As usual, women need to be in the victim spot alone, but there are double standards for men that negatively affect men concerning sex that don't get talked about in this situation. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, so we're gonna bring that on down. But for a group of people who are, again, supposed to be pro-women, want to see us represented well in this industry, in the gaming sphere, they're doing a pretty damn good job at creating that stupid double standard here, within it. For example, you never hear about a man's clothing. You never hear about a male character's clothing being too revealing. You never hear about, they talk about big-breasted women, or women who have too many, their bodies are too athletic or too curvy or whatever, but you never hear about overly muscled men. That's not too much. That's not unrealistic at all. You never hear about people like Kratos, who runs around since his inception rather. You never hear about Kratos, who from the jump has been running around in this like almost loincloth. You never hear about that. You never hear about Dante Sparta with his open chest jacket, or even in the new Devil May Cry, where there was a completely, I won't say it's unnecessary in the sense that they shouldn't have added it, but it didn't add to the game. He was just naked for no reason for a big portion of the intro to that game. You can hear that same mouse farting on that same crumb. And even the way they review these things have a double standard, or where they talk about these things. Like, look at how the sex mini game in God of War was criticized. And those women weren't having sex with themselves. Kratos was every bit as in on that act as they were, but he gets to escape the judgment and they don't. Even Aphrodite, the goddess of love and fertility and all that, who would be sexually open and sexually free because that's her very being. That's what she has dominion over. But they were all wrong, but Kratos was like, he didn't do anything, right? When in fighting games, the women are heavily criticized on everything from their movesets to their clothing, and the men get nothing. Like, they're free to be muscle bound, and they're free to wear varying degrees of revealing clothing showing off being muscle bound, but nothing. That's fine. It's like, you can judge Cammy to the heavens, and they will. Oh, trust me, they will. And then some. But Doll Sim is fine. Doll Sim's good to go. You can judge Ivy to hell and back, and they will, and then some. But Voldo is fine? Nothing's wrong with Voldo's outfit? Of course. And usually this is explained away as a male power fantasy, which is every bit as bullshit as it sounds. It's literally nothing more than an excuse to place the crown of the victim on women while excusing the same or dismissing the same behavior and portrayals in men. I know for a fact females in the video game community can and have found these males attractive. If the fan fiction where they're inserting themselves into it and the fan art where they're, actually drawing the men in sexual ways that they may not even appear in game, if that's anything to go by, yeah, they find them pretty damn attractive. And where's these videos on the female gaze? Where's this video on female sexualizing men? I don't think there should be. I think it's silly, but I'm just saying, if that's the issue, be consistent. And as far as the power fantasies, women have power fantasies too. Escapism is a gender neutral thing. It's a natural gender neutral thing for human beings in general, and that's all really fantasies are. And plenty of women love the idea of being an attractive femme fatale, being admired or attracting different people, depending on what you have going on. It's kind of empowering, it is. So, one thing, it's not something that I feel should be demonized. I feel like it's being completely misrepresented, the power fantasies, and it's a gender neutral thing that isn't really harmful to anybody. I don't know. A lot of this stuff seems to be just manipulation or outright lies, and just, this is one of the biggest things, one of the biggest things that I've seen them continue to touch on, that I'm just sitting here like, really? You're just gonna ignore where women have these things too? You're gonna ignore where these things aren't wrong? Okay. And finally, the last double standard is the double standard on the body shaming angle. Now, I'm not one to use the term shaming lightly. I feel like it's become far too overused, like problematic and toxic and all these other buzzwords that, just slap it on anything and it's an instant modifier, like, get this taken down, it's toxic. Like, I'm tired of these words. But it's just, it's laughable. It is. Most of the time when they say these things, it's just laughable. But it's something to a lot of these people. It's something to a lot of these critics and their supporters. They believe in this strongly. And they will tell you strongly. Now, if you're not familiar with the term body shaming, then it's basically when somebody expresses disdain for your body, be it spoken, written, whatever. And usually, it's overblown into several other areas. Basically, it could even be, in their eyes, someone who's just not attracted to you, as if you are entitled to their attraction. But for the most part, the most genuine definition is somebody expressing disdain for your body, most likely in a mean or cruel way. And if you are familiar with body shaming, then take a shot, because you've most likely survived the hell that is Tumblr, and you deserve it. Now, this is how body shaming works in their eyes. If it's against bigger people, and by people I mean women, because it's always us, it is always about us. If it's against bigger people, don't do it. Ever. Don't even think about it. Don't do it. You don't body shame bigger people, because they are the only ones with feelings. They are the only ones that matter. Now, if you're thin, if you have big breasts, if you're actually curvy, if you have an athletic shape, It's fine. Because society glorifies you, so we can be complete and total cunts to you. That's how it works, because, I don't know, neon hair and bullshit. The point of mentioning this is that if a female character isn't getting trashed for her clothing, then she's getting trashed for how she's shaped. And you can just take a look at the outcry against women like Bayonetta, like Tifa, like Ivy from Soul Calibur again, just to get a glimpse into that, though there's plenty more. And one of the most common I've seen since I was younger is the criticism of Lara Croft. Always coming down to that chest size, every single time, and it's really old. She is more than just a pair of tits on stilts. They don't believe that. They're not going to have that. We must mention her chest size every time. We must demean her character based on the size of her chest. And it's always, it's too big, it's unnatural, it's perverted, it's too much, it's gross, it's unrealistic. No. Now, the Tomb Raider series is what made me a gamer. And as a child, the fact that something like video games could even exist blew my mind. And to date, 2016, I'm 21 years old. I believe I started gaming around when I was like 3 or 4. Games haven't stopped doing that for me. I don't think they ever will. However, I'm a big-chested girl. My chest size, I'm a 44 triple D. You think you have the right to tell me it's unnatural or unrealistic for somebody's chest to be big in a game, for a woman's chest to be big? I most likely have a bigger chest than Lara Croft herself. So how are you going to tell me and other women like me, whether you bought them things or Mother Nature and God placed them, how are you going to tell us that it's unrealistic, it's nasty, it's gross, and then turn around and want to talk about body shaming? The fuck? Simply having a big chest too should not automatically equate to sexuality. For example, take a look at Tifa. Just because Tifa's chest is big doesn't automatically mean they wanted you to look at her in a sexual manner. It just means that they're representing women fairly by showing there's different body types. Usually, the prerequisite for a woman being sexualized is her simply having a big chest. She may not even have to have a whole lot of other going on. Seeing Lara slam repeatedly for how she was shaped, despite the fact that she, with her active lifestyle, she would have an athletic shape. It's not unrealistic. I mean, sitting at your computer on Tumblr all day long, on your hot air powered soapbox, might not give you that body, so you might be thinking it's unrealistic, but a woman who has an assault course in her home that she trains on for adventures that she's constantly on would be shaped like that. And again, seeing her ridiculed for that, even though she's one of the best representations of women that we have, was annoying and a little hurtful at a younger age, because I'm sitting here thinking my chest is growing and growing, and you know, I thought she was pretty cool. I thought that was cool about her, that my favorite video game character has a chest like me. No, apparently that's nasty. That's gross. That's unrealistic. And even if it is associated with sexuality, to close that out, that is not a bad thing. The earlier responses to that still apply. And to close this podcast out, if you're listening on SoundCloud, I really recommend you check this out on YouTube, because you've been missing images of these things the whole time, and this is about to be an instance of that. On screen, you'll see an artist improvements, in obvious quotes, on female characters. Now notice all he or she did was shrink the chest and cover them up. Gotta get rid of that pesky sinful skin now, don't they? And I'm gonna be linking a write-up to that, a write-up on my thoughts on that art. Now, thank you for joining me for my first podcast. Any and all criticism would be welcome, because I know I already just doing it. I can tell I have areas that I need to improve on. And if you disagree with me, fine, just let me know. We can debate. I do enjoy a good debate, and I'm not afraid to step outside the echo chamber. So, if you disagree with me, if I got something wrong, let me know. And more importantly, again, thank you for tuning into my first podcast. If you have a topic concerning video games that you'd like me to talk about or take into consideration, let me know. I'm not about to set myself up on a schedule for this. It's most likely going to be whenever I feel like it. And I think that's about it for today.